Hi, I'm JJ. Welcome and welcome back. Today I have a few books and actually a couple movies that I want to talk about as I discuss Shaketember, any and all things Shakespeare related. Actually, a TV show as well. I don't know if I highly recommend it, but I watched it in preparation for this and I was fascinated. So I will start with the books though. So the one I have a physical copy of is The Last True Poets of the Sea. I actually really love this title, and I love when we get the reasoning behind this title. And it's by Julia Drake. And this is a sapphic queer retelling of the Twelfth Night. And so you have Violet, and she is basically sent to live with her uncle because she got in trouble a bunch of times, and her brother, who she was really close to, but they kind of fell apart, and he's a fascinating character. I don't really know how you would classify what his diagnoses might be, but he just recently almost died by suicide, and so they're separated, and she decides that the way to bring him back is to investigate their family's legend about how her great 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 grandmother survived a shipwreck, and she wants to find that ship. Just because she wants to do something for him, and she wants to try to focus on something other than herself for once, because she feels like a lot of the trouble and stuff she's been having has all been for selfishness and stuff. So she's trying to be more thoughtful. She's trying to shrink herself and not take up so much room, as she believes that it was her taking up too much room is what made her parents and herself not aware of the struggles that her brother was going through. So the shipwreck part is obviously homage to the 12th Night, the wreck. But then you also have the two relationships that she develops once she's there. And one is with a boy who has a crush on his longtime best friend Liv, and Olivia, but Liv in here. And so as they all start hanging out as friends, she decides that she's going to help them get together. She's gonna, she's swore off romance, so she's going to try to play her hand at basically trying to set up who she believes are this match made in heaven type of thing. So she's supposed to be befriending Liv and trying to help Liv see that this guy is in love with her and the right choice for her. But obviously she falls for Liv instead, and so that confusion, that kind of inner between, is another instance of the 12th Night. But otherwise, it's like, without those kind of just the names and the hints and stuff, it doesn't feel really much like a remake at all. But I still really did enjoy it. It was great to see the depth of the characters, especially Violet, as she grows and changes as a person and becomes a better person. She also improves her relationships with her brother and her uncle, and then seeing her interactions with the two other characters, and how you can have two soulmates, one platonic and one romantic, and just truly understanding that there is a difference, but sometimes it can be mistaken because you feel this depth for them and this love for them, that might be more platonic than romantic, but you know, people get confused. And so you don't have a whole lot of the humor and stuff that, you know, from Shakespeare that you're expecting, especially when you have the love triangle of the boy thinking he's in love with Liv, but then as he spends more time with Violet, he realizes that he actually prefers Violet, and like all this stuff, like you're expecting it to, you know, to be more Shakespeare-esque, with the humor and the, you know, all the stuff that's, you know, mistaken identities or just slapstick humor type of things. All the stuff that you're expecting with Shakespeare was not in here. It was much more grounded and much more serious. But the relationships among the people were interesting, and I did enjoy it. And I did like the mystery aspect as they're trying to figure out who her ancestor was, if she did really survive, how she survived, all that stuff I actually found very fascinating. I liked the mystery aspect to that. So otherwise, I don't really understand how it was much of a retelling, but you know, there was a couple glimpses and pieces here and there, but it's still worth a read, just maybe not expecting it to be very Shakespeare-like. The Last True Poets of the Sea. The other two that I read were definitely Shakespeare, or at least inspired by. So the Hamnet by Maggie O'Farrell, and that was a basically historical fiction retelling of Shakespeare's life, which in a fascinating twist never mentioned him whatsoever at all by name. And you still knew exactly who it was and who they were talking about, so I found that interesting. I don't know if it was a spoiler or a twist or not, but like when you read the back and you find out that it's about Shakespeare, like you're just expecting them to say Shakespeare, and they just never do. So it's more about his wife, which was a great way to delve into that, because you don't know much about his family life. You don't know the sacrifices that she made while he was gone, trying to make money and try to be famous for them. So having it grounded in her experience and her personality, and she was such a great character. I really did enjoy that. And then the story of his son Hamnet, who then you later get to see being the inspiration for one of his most successful and first popular plays, Hamlet. So I thought that whole ending section where, you know, like, you know what's coming, you know he's gonna die of the plague, like that's history, but how you get there was so marvelously done, so gut-wrenching and heart-wrenching, and the way that it ended with the play, and so therefore no other explanation for it being Shakespeare was needed. But understanding, like, when his wife recognized the heartache that went into it, that scene was so beautiful, haunting and delicious, I guess, in its description, and the way that it just brought the whole story together and made you really fully understand Hamlet more and Shakespeare in general. I did enjoy it. But actually my favorite book this month for Shakespeare was actually called Interghost by Isabella Hamad. And that is about this production of Shakespeare's Hamlet, which is why I read it, that takes place in West Bank. So you get all these expatriate or Palestinian performers who are trying to put on this play, and then you also get their backstory of what brought them all there and why they're all wanting to perform and why they're wanting to perform this play in general. And I said it before in another video how fascinating it is for me to have so many people have so much love and understanding of Shakespeare's plays in such different ways. How, you know, two different competing sides of the political spectrum can both identify with the same play for completely different reasons, or how, you know, they stood the test of time for, you know, these 400 years. And it still always fascinates me when I read something that gives me a completely different point of view than I realized before. And that is what this book gave me, with them trying to understand the characters and the motivations, and then seeing it in the grander scheme of their worldview and their situations in life and stuff was utterly fascinating. So the main character is supposed to be like Gertrude, who doesn't have very many lines, and yet she started to fully understand Gertrude in a way that I didn't before, and how whether she was a willing person who was, you know, like all out the power and or was manipulated to, you know, do what she did, or if she knew but didn't do it because she was manipulated or because of greed reasons, but because, you know, you feel you have no other choice, and this is the best of the bad choices, and just trying to understand the different motivations of the characters and how people in, you know, today's world can still fully find this way to identify with characters written so long ago, and find this acceptance or this depth that, whether it was there intentionally or because of their own lived experiences and their own biases, they see something different within the story that was intended. Either way, it made it so fascinating to try to understand it and that concept in that context. So it took, it was almost like a play within a play, but also you get this rich backstory of what the country is like now, the oppression and stuff that it's living under, the threat of violence and stuff that it's living under, how they're risking their lives to bring the story to the stage because they believe that it's their purpose, their life's work, but also that it's important, that whether you need art to keep surviving in the midst of terror, in the midst of war, in the midst of like unbelievable, horrible stuff, or if you need just to escape in a world that you can understand and try to analyze and create a different motivation for, whatever the reason. It just fascinates me that you get so many post-apocalyptic stories that deal with preserving art, whether it was the and I didn't really even very much enjoy this book when I read it, but Station 11 was a troupe of Shakespearean actors at the end of the world, who went from city to city to try to put on plays and, you know, maintain art and some sort of normalcy within the falling world around them. And this felt very much like this, but very much better done. But in both instances, they want to preserve something, maybe some sense of innocence, maybe some sense of connection in a world where we all feel so disconnected. And the same is true for other dystopian books, whether, Fahrenheit 451, where they're trying to preserve books, which is always interesting that because even in that one, many of them try to preserve Shakespeare. So what is it about Shakespeare that is so universally accepted, so universally loved, to the point that no matter what dystopian era you're in, no matter what war-torn country you're in, no matter what horrible present you're in, you find a way to connect and attach to these characters that were not real to begin with, but also are, 400 years old. So that alone fascinates me, but I do think that this was very well executed and very important and timely. And so I highly recommend Interghost by Isabella Hamad. And in addition to those, because I read that 12th Night book, I rewatched a childhood favorite, She's the Man, which is a humorous, comedic retelling of 12th Night that actually gets the point across, the funny mistaken identity type aspect, and it's over the top, but it's so fun, and I did enjoy it this time around too, even though it's been years since I've watched it. And then to re-explore Hamlet, after those two books, I watched or rewatched Renaissance Man. It's an American film from the 90s, early 90s, and it was really good because not only does it once again show how no matter what your life experience is, you can still always connect to Hamlet. And so it's basically takes place in the U.S. military with a bunch of delinquent kids who are, young adults who are going to be failing out of the program, failing out of basic training. And so they have a teacher come in who's supposed to try to educate them. I don't even know why they would do this. They really wouldn't, but it's a comedy, so you just got to kind of, suspend belief for it. But so he goes in and he's trying to teach them, get them to read and write and everything properly. And he falls on talking to them about Hamlet, and they're getting fascinated, and that's how he reaches them. And they do Hamlet, and then they also do... they have a bunch of mentions of Henry V, and then later on there's a mention of Othello. So very highly recommended, entertaining way to be reacquainted with Hamlet, especially after getting the point of view from the Palestinian actors in Interghost. And then a random one that I was watching is also a rewatch for me. And I don't know how easy it is to find. I had a hard time finding it, but it was a TV show, just 8 or 10 episodes of this show called Will, about William Shakespeare, and it's about his early life, and it's not historically accurate in any way whatsoever, but it's a fun way to look at what might have inspired each play. And it was fun to watch each episode, and figuring out oh, this is how he got this. Oh, this is how he got this. And I found it amusing. And then there ends up being some depth to it because you have the Protestant Reformation going on. So you have a really horrible character who's basically working for the Queen, Elizabeth, and killing or torturing, trying to stop the Catholics, and they have, and I don't know much about Shakespeare. I definitely have to read more biographies and stuff, but he was in this portrayed as Catholic, and so it was a Protestant regime with Queen Elizabeth in charge, so he had to hide that aspect, which kind of affected some different plot lines, and some, it was a big basically subplot of the story. But it did give depth to his character and to his writing and everything. And then you had a parallel line, which also wouldn't have worked out for real life, but Christopher Marlowe was in it. And his storyline was weird, but it totally made a lot of sense by the time you got to the end of it. And it really made me more fascinated to understand and read more about for Christopher Marlowe. I'd only ever read Edward II, so I definitely need to read more of his work, especially after watching that and seeing how he kind of came up with Dr. Faustus. But it starts off rocky. I don't know if I would necessarily recommend it, but if you don't have anything else to do and if you want to, get into something, there were some moments that were definitely worth it. And in the later episodes, it actually ended up being really good. It just took like half of it to get there. But I don't know. I do want to participate more in Shakespeare, Shaketember for next year. But I think I'm going to do more with Christopher Marlowe during that time, since is my understanding of this tag is anything Shakespeare related, and Shakespeare definitely was influenced by Marlowe. And I would love to do more of Marlowe's work and understand how that inspiration worked, because if so many people now are inspired by Shakespeare, and Shakespeare was inspired by Marlowe, I would like to know how he got those inspirations, but also who inspired Marlowe and what inspired Marlowe. I would like to know that. If anyone knows more about him, please let me know. But anyway, enough rambling. Those are 3 books and 3 other sources of media that I consumed during Shaketember, and I hope that you at least found interest in at least one of them. Thank you. Have a great day.